lead. Remember, Indiana was down 13. 13. New York, 13-point lead was the most. Indiana, 25 points. And we won this game with New York leading 59% of the time. Indiana only 40% of the time. But here's the only thing that matters. Are you leading when the game ends? And Indiana crushed the New York Liberty.
Down 13, up 25, and a 20-point win over New York. That swing is the story. But the real warning is not the final score. It is what Indiana proved while still leaving obvious mistakes on the floor.
Here's the thing that one of the reasons why I really didn't want to bypass this conversation about the game. Something that I pointed out several times during the live stream. Indiana won the game by 20 points. And then at the end, we had some fouling during garbage time or whatever. So it was really a wider margin than that. But understand me when I say, you know it if you saw it. Indiana didn't even play the best basketball the team can play. And I wanted to drive that home. We did not play our best basketball, had to claw our way out of a deficit early. And then
that is the line that changes how this game should be viewed. Indiana did not need a perfect Caitlin Clark shooting night, a flawless first quarter, or 4 clean periods to bury the Liberty. They survived the ugly part, figured out what New York was giving them, and then turned a competitive game into a runaway. And later, the most important number is not 108, 88, 33, or even the 25-point largest lead. It is the number that explains why the Fever's offense suddenly looked far more dangerous than New York's, even though both teams made the same amount of mistakes. That is where this went from a fun win to a legitimate warning for the rest of the league.
Scored. ESPN.com. First quarter there at Gainbridge in Indianapolis, Indiana. New York 28, Indiana 22. Second quarter, New York 21, Indiana 23. Still down 4 going into the half. Third quarter, New York 12, Indiana 30. Fourth quarter, New York 27, Indiana 33.
Look at the quarter-by-quarter shape. New York controlled the opening 6 minutes, won the first quarter, and still carried a 4-point advantage into halftime. Then Indiana came out of the locker room and dropped a 30-12 third quarter on them. That is not just making more shots. A swing that violent usually means one team changed the terms of the game. Indiana increased the pace, attacked earlier in the clock, forced New York to defend multiple actions, and stopped letting the Liberty's early shooting dictate the emotional temperature. The Fever went from reacting to initiating. The third quarter also matters because Indiana has had stretches where one bad sequence became 3 bad sequences. Against New York, the opposite happened. One stop became a transition chance. One transition chance became pressure at the rim. One made shot lifted the defense. Momentum was not something that happened to them. They created it.
We had 4 points from Mo Billings with 6 rebounds. AB with 15 points on 6 of 11 shooting, 7 rebounds and 4 assists. Kelsey Mitchell, 33 on 10 of 14 from the field, 4 of 6 from 3. She got to the line 13 times. Good things happen when you drive, and this team was driving into the paint and getting to the free throw line.
Kelsey Mitchell was the accelerator. 10 makes on 14 attempts, 4 threes, 33 points, and 13 trips to the free throw line. New York never found a clean answer because Mitchell was not attacking the same way every possession. She could sprint into a pull-up, reject the screen, turn the corner, or punish a defender who opened her stance for half a second. The free throws are especially important. When a scorer is only living on difficult jumpers, the defense can survive a hot stretch and wait for regression. Mitchell removed that escape route. She made New York guard the drive, and once the defense started shrinking toward the paint, Indiana's spacing became more valuable. This is where the Fever's ceiling starts to look different. Caitlin Clark naturally bends the defense with range and passing. Aaliyah Boston creates pressure through screens, seals, and interior touch. Mitchell adds the downhill scoring that prevents opponents from simply loading up on one side of the floor. When all three threats are active, the defense has to choose which type of damage it is willing to accept.
Steals. Caitlin Clark, man, it's hard to follow up 45 and 10. She had 17. She struggled a bit shooting, but she got to the free throw line. She hit her free throws. She got assists, dishing out dimes. The beautiful one where, where Kelsey got it from CC, and then Kelsey went over her head and hit Caitlin in the right corner for the three.
Clark followed a 45-point, 10-assist performance with 17 points and 7 assists. And that is exactly why this win should concern Indiana's opponents. She did not need another historic scoring explosion for the Fever to control the game. Her shooting was uneven, but she still created value. She got to the line, moved the ball, and connected actions that turned one advantage into another. The sequence described there, with the ball moving from Clark to Mitchell and back to Clark in the corner, is the kind of possession that tells you the offense is maturing. It was not one star dribbling while 4 teammates watched. It was quick recognition, relocation, and trust. That changes how teams have to prepare. If Clark scores 40, the explanation is easy. A superstar took over. If she scores 17 and Indiana still hangs 108 on New York, the problem becomes structural. Now the opponent has to defend the entire system, not just the headline player. That is a much harder assignment over 40 minutes.
Sophie Cunningham gave us double digits off the bench, 11 points, 3 of 6 from the field, 3 of 4 from 4. 3 of 4 from 3. Maybe one day there'll be a 4-point shot. 3 of 4 from 3, 2 of 2 from the free throw line, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 blocks as well. And Ty Harris, another 11 points, 4 of 8 from the field, 1 of 3 from 3, hit both of her free throws, 2 rebounds, 4 assists.
And this was not only the starting trio. Sophie Cunningham scored 11 off the bench, hit 3 of 4 from deep, added 4 rebounds, and contributed 2 blocks. Ty Harris added another 11 points and 4 assists. Those minutes changed the texture of the game because Indiana did not have to pause the offense every time the rotation shifted. Bench production is more than points. It preserves roles. Mitchell does not have to force a shot because the second unit has gone silent. Clark does not have to play every possession at maximum speed. Boston can sit without the Fever immediately losing all organization. That matters even more in a season where health, workload, and lineup continuity have all been part of the conversation around Indiana. A team becomes far more dangerous when the stars can win the biggest possessions and the supporting cast can win the ordinary ones. The ordinary possessions are where playoff-level games are often decided. The final 2 minutes of the first quarter, the opening stretch of the fourth, the minutes after a timeout when one starter is resting. Indiana won those connective moments. That is why the final margin kept expanding instead of snapping back toward a close finish.
Free throw, at the field goal percentage, 54% from the field from Indiana, 50% from 3, and gotta do better on the free throws, 20 of 27 for 74.
54% from the field and 50% from 3 will grab attention. But those percentages should not be treated like random shooting luck. They were connected to the quality of the attempts. Indiana created rhythm by forcing New York to guard multiple levels. Paint pressure produced kickouts. Transition created cross matches. Ball movement turned late closeouts into cleaner looks. The Fever did make difficult shots, but they also generated the kind of open or balanced attempts good offenses are supposed to create. The 20 of 27 free throw number shows there was still room left on the table. So does the slow start. So do the turnovers. This is why saying Indiana did not play its best basketball is not empty optimism. There are identifiable areas that could improve without requiring the team to invent a new identity. The counter-argument is obvious. Shooting 50% from 3 is not something any team can expect every night. Fair. But Indiana does not need that exact number every night if the process continues to generate paint touches, free throws, transition opportunities, and open threes. the percentage can fall while the offense remains sustainable.
They were smoking hot, knocking down shots. Johannes was knocking down. I mean, they were doing all those things. And I said, the good news is that I doubt that New York will continue to be this hot in their shooting. That's my thought. And Breanna Stewart, her free throws were atrocious. And I'm thankful. They were atrocious. And then she started missing layups and bunnies and all this other stuff. But she still had 26 points on 10 of 16 shooting. But, she kind of got cold there. Look at the free throw line, 4 for.
New York began the game looking comfortable. Marine Johannes was making shots. Breanna Stewart was productive. And the Liberty seemed ready to control the matchup with experience and shot making. But Indiana did something important. It did not panic while New York was hot. Stewart still finished with 26 points on 10 of 16 shooting, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 blocks, and a steal. That is a strong individual line. Yet she also finished minus 17, because the game around those numbers tilted hard toward Indiana. That distinction matters. A star can have a good box score, while her team loses control of pace, possession value, and lineup balance. New York's early makes masked some of those issues. Once the shooting cooled and the game became more physical, the Liberty had fewer easy answers. Stewart's 4 of 9 free throw shooting hurt, but the deeper problem was that New York's offense stopped creating reliable advantages. Indiana was getting downhill, running after mistakes and producing multiple contributors. New York increasingly depended on individual shot making. One offense became broader as the game progressed, the other became narrower. And when an experienced team like the Liberty loses control that quickly, the concern is not one missed layup or one cold stretch. The concern is whether the opponent found a repeatable pressure point.
But here's the good news, okay? If New York had hit all the free throws, they would have had 10 more points, and Indiana still would have beaten them by 10 points.
Even perfect free throw shooting would not have saved New York. 10 additional points would still have left the Liberty 10 short. That removes one of the easiest excuses. This was not a game decided by one whistle, one bounce, or one strange late sequence. Indiana created enough separation to survive hypothetical corrections. The same applies to the first half. New York can point to its early control, but leading for long stretches means little when the opponent owns the decisive possessions. Indiana's response after halftime showed a level of problem-solving that has not always been present. The Fever identified what was working, leaned into it, and did not allow New York to slow the avalanche. For a team still trying to prove consistency, that may be the biggest psychological win. Indiana did not need the game to begin perfectly in order to believe it could finish powerfully. That belief becomes dangerous when it is attached to real execution instead of wishful thinking.
Rebounds. Indiana won. Indiana's over here on the right. Won the rebounding battle. Indiana with 32 rebounds to 27. Right? This is the team that people are like, where are our bigs? Where are our bigs? Who's going to rebound? I think we out-rebounded Seattle as well. So we've done some of that throughout the season. We had one more offensive rebound, 8 to 7. We had 4 more defensive rebounds, 24 to 20.
The rebounding numbers are another answer to a question that has followed Indiana. Can this roster hold up physically against bigger, more established teams? The Fever won the Glass 32 to 27, including an 8 to 7 edge in offensive rebounds and a 24 to 20 advantage on the defensive end. Those are not overwhelming margins, but they were enough to deny New York the extra possessions it needed once Indiana's offense caught fire. Rebounding is often treated like a height contest, but positioning and collective effort matter just as much. Guards have to finish possessions. Wings have to crack back when a big steps up to contain the ball. The nearest player has to make contact instead of watching the shot. Indiana's numbers suggest that responsibility was shared. Aaliyah Boston had 7 rebounds. Monique Billings had 6. KK Timpson added 5 in limited minutes. That distribution is significant because it means the Fever were not asking one player to clean up every miss. It also allowed them to run. A secured rebound is the first pass of the transition offense. When Clark or another guard receives the ball before New York's defense is organized, Indiana's speed becomes a weapon. The rebounding edge therefore fed directly into one of the biggest statistical gaps of the entire night.
Both teams with 17 turnovers, but here's the key. Okay, New York, 17 turnovers. Indiana made New York pay. Got 30 points off of 17 turnovers. Didn't waste the opportunities. And we had 17 and they scored 17 points. So they gave up 30 and only got 17 back. We also got 18 fast break points to New York's 3. We got 38 points in the paint to New York's 32.
There is the payoff. Both teams committed 17 turnovers, but Indiana turned New York's mistakes into 30 points. The Liberty produced only 17 points from Indiana's turnovers. Same number of giveaways, 13-point difference in punishment. That is the number that explains the blowout. Turnovers are not all equal. A dead ball travel gives the defense time to organize. A live ball steal can become a layup before the opponent knows who it is guarding. Indiana created the more valuable kind of chaos. 7 steals, quick outlets, aggressive lanes, and immediate decisions turned New York's mistakes into points before the Liberty could reset. The 18-3 fast break advantage confirms it. That is a 15-point gap in transition, nearly the exact size of the advantage Indiana created from turnover conversion. The Fever were not simply more efficient in the half-court. They changed the number of possessions that had to be played in the half-court at all. This is also why New York's 17 turnovers were more damaging than Indiana's 17. The Liberty allowed mistakes to become momentum events. The Fever gave the ball away too, but they were better at limiting the next layer of damage. Now connect that to the larger picture. Clark is one of the best open-floor decision-makers in the league. Mitchell is terrifying when she is attacking a retreating defense. Boston runs well, seals early, and can punish a smaller cross-match. Cunningham brings edge and shooting on the wing. When Indiana forces a live ball turnover, all of those strengths arrive at once. The real breakthrough was not that Indiana suddenly stopped making mistakes. It was that the Fever became ruthless when New York made them.
And once again, the crushing came from an Indiana Fever team that did not even play 4 solid quarters. When this team gets going even more as we enter the second half of the season after the All-Star break, I've said it all season, even though they've taken us through the roller coaster and we still have to prove that we can be consistent. But I believe this team is clicking, especially you get that big 3. AB, Caitlin, Kelsey.
This is where the conversation moves beyond one result. Indiana has shown individual explosions before. Clark can produce a historic night. Mitchell can carry a scoring load. Boston can control the interior. The question has always been whether those performances could combine into a stable team identity. Against New York, the pieces looked connected. The big 3 did not duplicate one another. Mitchell supplied direct scoring pressure. Clark organized and stretched the floor. Boston provided interior balance, screens, passing, and rebounding. Around them, the bench gave Indiana enough shooting and ball handling to keep the machine running. That is why the phrase clicking feels more meaningful now than it did earlier in the season. Chemistry is not players smiling after a made basket. It is knowing where the next pass is before the defense rotates. It is a guard trusting that the screener will arrive on time. It is a bench player entering without changing the purpose of the offense. It is 5 players reacting to a turnover as one unit. Indiana still has to prove this can travel from game to game. One dominant second half does not erase every uneven performance. The shooting will not always be this clean. Opponents will adjust. More physical defenses will try to disrupt Clark before the first action even begins. Teams will force Mitchell left, crowd Boston's catches, and test whether the supporting cast can make the next pass under pressure. But those are playoff questions, and the fact that Indiana is now earning playoff questions is progress by itself. Earlier, the conversation was about survival, injuries, minutes, and whether the roster could establish any rhythm. Now the discussion is about how opponents might have to scheme against a multi-layered offense. That is a major shift in stakes.
Steps up like we saw in the previous game when it was Mo. I just think with Sophie, man, Sophie rocking it. So yeah, I don't have any highlights for you. You've seen them all by now. But I wanted to leave you with the thought, they didn't even play their best basketball. And New York came in with hopes and dreams, but left having lost by 20 points to the Indiana Fever.
The final warning is simple. New York did not lose to Indiana's absolute ceiling. It lost to a version of the Fever that still had visible flaws, still turned the ball over 17 times, still started slowly, and still had Clark fighting through an inefficient shooting night. That does not guarantee Indiana will become a championship team. It does mean the Fever's margin for error may be growing. Great teams are not only dangerous when everything works, they are dangerous when Plan A breaks and Plan B still wins by double digits. For New York, the response has to be more serious than blaming missed free throws or a bad third quarter. The Liberty were beaten in transition, on the glass, in turnover conversion, in paint production, and in depth scoring. Stewart's 26 points did not stabilize the game. The early shooting did not survive Indiana's pressure. Once the Fever increased the speed, New York never regained control. For Indiana, the challenge is discipline. Can the Fever reduce the giveaways without losing aggression? Can they create paint pressure when the threes are not falling? Can the bench repeat this level of contribution? Can Clark, Mitchell, and Boston keep complementing one another instead of taking turns? Those answers will determine whether this was one of the best nights of the season or the beginning of something larger. But the evidence from this game is difficult to dismiss. Indiana erased a 13-point deficit, built a 25-point lead, scored 30 points off turnovers, dominated fast break scoring 18-3, shot 54% from the floor, received 33 from Mitchell, 15 from Boston, 17 points and 7 assists from Clark, and beat the Liberty 108-88. The Fever did not merely win. They showed a formula. So choose a side. Was this just a hot afternoon against a struggling Liberty team? Or did Indiana finally reveal the version of itself that nobody wants to see in a playoff series? Drop your answer in the comments. Hit like if this team has your attention, and subscribe for the next breakdown.